Now, before we get started on this video, I do just want to make it clear that I haven't turned into a tinfoil hat-wearing conspiracy theorist nut job. Because I feel like if I don't say that right at the start, that's going to be all the comments are saying. Because in this video, I'm going to be showing you through our emergency preparedness kit. But I've got to be super duper clear. I'm prepping for Tuesday, not doomsday, which is a term I learned looking at online prepping communities, which doesn't help that I'm not a crazy person argument, does it? But let me explain a little bit about what I mean by that. I am not sat here trying to assemble myself a bunker that can survive the end of the world. What I am trying to do is make sure if we ever get a repeat of what happened 5 years ago with lockdowns, and having to queue up to get into supermarkets and not being able to buy toilet roll or yeast or fish fingers or some of the other things that we made videos about at the time that we just couldn't find. Or if we were to have a power cut, which as a CPAP user who relies on, you know, a machine to breathe at night, a power cut is a huge problem for us. Or even something even simpler than that. I had to go to hospital for a few days. I'd like to know that there's enough here for Anna to get by without me and vice versa. Or even if we were just hit with some financial hardship and couldn't afford to go and do the shopping for a few days. We're preparing for that kind of thing. When I was a kid, I was in the Scouts. I learned to always be prepared. And as an adult, I am an autistic man who freaks out if he's not prepared. I can't go on a road trip or a holiday without watching 10 videos on it, researching the ins and outs of it and making sure that I am prepared for every eventuality. And believe it or not, that anxiety does pass over into my real life. And I will lie there at night thinking of all the things that could go wrong. And if I don't have a good solution to them, I'll struggle to sleep. So this is part covering off against those kind of mid-tier emergencies, part helping my little autistic brain sleep at night, and part just kind of a sensible thing that I've sort of always done without it having a name. But as I discovered Reddit and TikTok and all of these places where I could learn more about this, it has developed more of a name. And I actually think it's not the worst idea in the world to share what I've got, because I think it probably is sensible advice for everybody to have a 3-day emergency prep kit. We're not prepping for the end of the world. We're not prepping for doomsday. We're just trying to make sure that if there's ever a situation where we can't get hold of a loaf of bread or a pint of milk, we're covered. And I can keep my phone charged to be able to vlog all about it while it's going on. So I think that should be enough of a preamble to stop you all calling me a crazy person. If after all of that, you still think that I'm bonkers, fair enough. I'm not going to make you watch. You've probably already stopped watching. Each to their own and all that. This whole setup makes me feel better. But if you don't want to do it, then that's fine. I'm not going to make you. I'm not going to preach to you. But if this is something you are looking to do and you don't really know where to get started, hopefully you'll be able to use this video as a helpful starting point for a relatively cheap, relatively easy to put together emergency preparedness kit. And on the assumption that I am now talking to the people who actually want to know what I think and want to know what I've done, I would add an early piece of advice, and that is you don't need to try and do all of this in one go. I'm not suggesting you sit down with a pen and paper, write down everything that we've got and go out and get it all, or place a big Amazon order. That almost defeats the purpose of it, because that's going to put you in some financial difficulty. You might need to start getting into your tins of beans, and you don't want to get into your tins of beans unless you have to. But it's something that over time you can just kind of add to. When you see things on offer, you can buy an extra one. Like we do, go and do your shopping at Costco once a month, and you tend to buy in bulk anyway. You could maybe buy a little bit more bulk for a few months so that you have a little bit of overstock, and gradually over time build up to the point where you could survive a few days, a week, without needing to go to the shops. I mean, we all lived through lockdown 5 years ago. There was a time during lockdown where me and Anna were both sick with COVID at the same time. So we couldn't go out and do any shopping. And we were lucky at the time that we still lived near family, and we got some family to drop us some stuff off on our doorstep, and that kind of got us through. But we now live an hour away from our nearest family members. And if we were, and hopefully we never do, but if we were to go back to another situation like what happened 5 years ago, they're not going to be allowed to travel an hour to drop us off food, and we have no one else here who would be able to do it for us. So that was kind of my first level of, we need to have something in the house just in case, because if that did happen again, we would have to just make do with what we had. So let's make sure that we've got enough. And that's where I'm going to start. You can see I've got 2 boxes. I've got a box of food and a box of non-food stuff. So we're going to start with the food stuff, then we'll have a look at the non-food stuff. And I'll try and be relatively quick, but I'll also try and explain what we've got and why we've got it as we go. So in fact, before we even get into the food, water, even more important than food. It's relatively cheap to accumulate. The general advice seems to be you want to have at least kind of 2 or 3 days worth of water on hand just in case. We even had an incident since we've lived in this house, and we've been here less than a year, where we had a leak. We had to get a plumber around. They turned the water off for like 4 hours, which again, it's not the end of the world, but we couldn't make a cup of tea while that was going on. Now we can, because we've got some water, so we could just crack this open. And I think that's the key thing with all of this. It's a mindset thing of, this isn't stuff that we just put in the cupboard and forget about, and it's only to be used in emergency situations for the end of the world. It's stuff that it's just handy to have on hand. I'll show you in a little while. I've got a pack of batteries. I've already replaced that twice since they've been in there, because we've needed batteries for other things. And now, rather than having to place an Amazon order and wait or head down the shops, we can just grab them out of our box and then we replace them in the box. And it is handy just for day-to-day stuff. Likewise with the tins of beans that we'll get to in a little while. We don't want, let's say it's 5 years before we need any of this stuff, we don't want to be having 3-year out-of-date beans when we come to it. So when we want beans, we'll use up the beans that are in here and then replenish this. It's constantly rotating stock so that we don't end up with loads of out-of-date stuff. But we do have 3 of these big bottles of water. My theory is, for 3 days, that's enough water for me and Anna to drink as just like drinking water. That's a couple of those each. That's like a litre of water each per day for 3 days, but we could just drink as water. And then we'd have 1 of these per day as well, which is another 5 litres of water. So that means we have 7 litres of water a day between the 2 of us. So a couple of litres for us to drink and then a few litres for us to cook with. And that feels like enough water for us to get through 3 days. And you can get that amount of water together for about £3. Because these bottles are less than £1. And then we got the 12 pack of the smaller bottles off of Amazon for a couple of quid as well. So less than a £5. We've got enough water for the 2 of us for 3 days. Plumber, do your worst. And then we've got the food. And the food is in this tub. And what I've tried to do with the food is just get enough for us to have breakfast, lunch and dinner each for 3 days, plus other essentials like tea, coffee. I mean, I've got lots of coffee. I think these must have been on offer, because I can't think of any other reason why I'd have 4 packs of them. So I can only assume they were on an offer. But I've also got some spares of various medications of mine and Anna's in here as well. There should be another one of those somewhere. I want to get these out of the way because they've got our addresses on. There is another pack of them, but with the medications, because we both have a number of prescriptions that we take, rather than waiting until we're completely run out on the prescriptions, we order as soon as we're able to order them again. So we were able to get to the point where we both basically had a month's worth of our prescription medication spare. We built up a backlog of it, and we'll continue to build up that backlog because we've seen medication shortages. We've both had situations where medication that we take on a daily basis has been difficult to get hold of at points within the last 5 years. I know if you've got ADHD medication in particular was very difficult to get hold of for a while. We had issues with Andy's medication as well, where we couldn't get hold of that. We had to drive all over Lincolnshire like 3-4 years ago to try and find his medication in stock anywhere. So it just seemed to make sense to have some of our medication on hand, just in case there's ever any difficulty getting it. We've got it because it keeps us alive. And then we've just got what I would consider basics. So we've got the coffee and stuff there. I've got some hot chocolate, which we got from Costco. It was in a big 2-pack. I don't really like it, but I figured in an emergency, we've got that there as well. We don't have any tea bags or any milk because neither of us drink tea, and I don't drink milk in my coffee, although these have got milk powder in. We don't have anything that we need to add milk to, so milk, seemed like something we didn't need. If you are a tea addict, you could add some tea bags and some UHT milk and a pack of sugar and you'd be fine. We didn't need any of that stuff. But then for breakfast, we've got 8 of these. So that's 1 each per day for 4 days for breakfasts. It's not the most delicious thing in the world, but the key with the ones in the pots, rather than getting the ones that you have to add milk to, is you just add water to these. So if we were in a situation where we couldn't get out because we were too sick or the shops were shut or whatever the situation might be, we can use some of the water that we've got, heat it up, add it to our little pots, and we've got some porridge that we can have for breakfast. I don't anticipate for us, we are looking for a bug out situation. We're not planning for like going and living in the woods. You won't find any survival gear in amongst all of this. This is very much a case of if we are stuck in our house for a few days, maybe without power, maybe without access to shops. So we've got a little hob top kettle that we keep in the kitchen next to our electric kettle. We've got a little gas burner thing that we keep in the shed with a couple of little camping gas bottles just in case. And we also have a electricity solution, which we'll get to in a little while. But I'll carry on showing you the food. So for protein, we have Tesco's version of Spam. We've got a couple of tins of that. I really like Spam, so I don't mind that. Anna's not a massive fan. We've also got some tinned mackerel again, so we've got something for protein. I really like a tinned fish. Anna prefers tuna, so we've got some tuna. So we've got some protein sources. Also for protein, somewhere in here, there's some tins of hot dogs, which I'll find eventually. It's going to be the last tin I pick up. There you go. We've got a few tins of hot dogs, and then we've got stuff that we can have as a separate meal. So we've got some tins of things like beef casserole. We've got some minced beef and onions. So just things that you can heat up. They're not delicious, but they're nutritious. And that's quite important. We've got some soups. So we can have porridge for breakfast. We've then got soups for lunch. So we've got some chicken soup. We've got some tomato soup. Again, soups that we like, soups that we would eat anyway. That if we are sick and we want soup, we don't have to go to the shop and buy soup. We know we've got it in here. And then for dinners, we've got the protein through the fish and through the tinned meats. And we've also got stuff like these things. We've got beans, obviously, as a protein source as well. We've got the hot dogs. We've got more beef casserole. I think there's some chili con carne in here somewhere as well. And then we've also got some tinned fruit, just so that we have some fruits. There's some apple slices, some pear slices. I think there's a 1980s style fruit cocktail in here somewhere as well, peach slices. So the theory was, in amongst all of our tins, which obviously tins last forever anyway, but these are all things that we will eat normally, apart from maybe the tinned fruit. But I don't mind a tinned fruit. Again, I like all this. Anna's not a massive fan of a huge amount of it, but we do in the kitchen have loads of dried foods like dried pasta sauces. There's loads of tins in the kitchen as well. So this is like over and above what we have as our normal kitchen stocks. So I think with this stuff and then the stuff that we already have in the kitchen, with the pasta, the rice, the stuff like that, that's already part of our rotation in the kitchen, I think we've got enough food for, if the shop's shut now and the grid went down, we could survive for a week easily just on the food that we've already got. We'd obviously eat up the freezer first, eat up the stuff that's in the cupboards first, and then we've got 3 or 4 days out of this box as well. So we'd be absolutely fine for food for a few days. We've got the gas burner to cook it. We've got barbecue and a couple of bags of coal that we could use to cook. And we do have a solution for electricity as well. And that's where this episode's sponsor comes in, because this episode is sponsored by Jackery, who kindly sent us one of their power supply units to review. This is the Jackery Explorer 240 V2. And this is a massive battery, basically, which we can charge up from the mains. We keep it fully charged, and then you can use this to charge your other devices off of. Obviously, we've got a normal plug socket on there. There's some USB-Cs, a USB-A. There's a little 12-volt cigarette lighter from the car one as well. It's also got a massive torch on the front of it, which I imagine is quite handy as well. It's got this little readout on the front that tells you how much juice it's got in it. You can see ours is fully charged. We charge it up With this, we keep it fully charged just on a normal power cable, but you can also plug a solar panel into it as well via USB-C, or you can also charge it off of the car battery as well. You do need to get separate cables to be able to do the solar panel or the car charging, but there's multiple ways to keep it charged up. And for me, it's just an extra layer of peace of mind, because if we did have a power cut, and obviously we've all experienced power cuts in our time, as a first port of call, it's going to allow us to keep our phones charged. Keeping your phones charged, quite important in any kind of emergency situation. You want to be able to keep up to date with the news. You want to be able to keep up to date with friends and family. You want to be able to communicate. So being able to keep our phones charged is crucial. But it would also allow us to do things like give the freezer a bit of a blast if we are running down the freezer over a few days because the power's been off for ages. We could stick the freezer back on for a bit just to make sure it stays frozen. I can use this to plug my CPAP machine into so I don't die in my sleep. And probably most crucially of all, Anna could use it to run her PlayStation for a bit so that she can keep herself amused if all of the power is off. But in addition to it just being part of our emergency prep kit, it's also a super handy thing to have anyway. When we go away, the amount of times over the years something like this would have been handy with Andy, because he loves an electronic device and he needs them to be fully charged. We even had an incident on the way back from Skegness just the other week where he lost his phone charger cable while we were away, wanted to have his phone on charge in the car on the way home, but we didn't have a cable that was long enough to run from the front of the car to the back of the car. If we'd have had this with us on that trip, obviously we could have just plugged a shorter cable into this, sat this next to him in the back of the car, and he could have kept his phone charged and he'd have been happy. When I'm out and about doing long filming days, keeping this back in the back of the car is going to be invaluable for keeping my laptop charged, keeping my cameras charged, again, keeping my phone charged, keeping the drone charged, all that kind of stuff where in the past I've needed a hotel room to go back and charge midway through the day when we were doing the best thing from trips a few years ago. We would need midday charge up sessions. If we had something like this at the time in the back of the car, we could have used this to keep things charged as we were out and about. And also, it's going to come with us whenever we go and do anything like a theme park day or a day where Anna's going to be using her mobility scooter a lot. We can use this to juice up her battery on that. So we're never left in a situation again like we were in Bournemouth a few years ago. We made a video on this as well, where I basically had to push Anna's scooter back from the middle of Bournemouth all the way to our car, leave Anna abandoned on it in a car park, bring the car a little bit closer, and it was just a disaster. If we'd have had this with us, we could have put enough juice back into that battery just to get it back to the car, get it back home again, and it would have saved us a lot of physical exertion, a lot of effort, and a lot of faffing around. So it's just a super useful thing for us to have in general. And of course, in a situation where there is a power cut, it's going to keep us going in an emergency, and we probably are going to get a solar panel to plug into it as well. And obviously, if the weather is as hot as it is right now, that's going to be able to charge it back up again. We could charge it back up in the car. It's all good and very, very useful. So thank you very much to Jackery for sending us this to review. I am getting on very well with it so far. And I imagine over the coming weeks and months, as it becomes more a part of our everyday kit, I'll come up with even more useful uses for it. But certainly I'm already thinking in terms of, I don't imagine we're going to go on very many car trips without this in the back of the car ever again, because it's just so useful to have a big chunk of electricity with us for that kind of emergency situation. And then in addition to the Jackery and the little gas cooker that we've got that we keep in the shed, and the barbecues, and then all our normal kitchen stuff, like I say, we're not planning on bugging out. So if we were in a situation where we had to survive in an emergency for a few days, we'd use our own saucepans and stuff like that. The only real thing we needed was the replacement kettle, because we don't want to drain our Jackery with an electric kettle when we can just use a little bit of camping gas. But then we've got this box, which is all of our non-food essential stuff, and there's some more prescriptions in there. So medication for days. And this is just stuff that we're slowly adding to over time. More medication. Goodness me, there's a lot of medication. And it's just, as we think of something that would be quite useful to have, we grab it and we pop it in this box. So we've got some water purification tablets, which I think were mega cheap on an Amazon sale at one point. We've got a whole load of matches. Again, massive bag full of little boxes of matches. We've got a deck of playing cards because we are easily bored. We've got a couple of torches, which should have batteries in them. So we've got a couple of torches. What's this? A little camping light, little lantern that we can just, there's two of them in there. But if we don't want to use the torches, we could use them to like stick on the landing, stick in the kitchen so that we could see what we're doing. We have a wind-up radio. I've had this for about 3 years. I got this on an Amazon sale quite a long time ago. In fact, it's probably getting on for 5 years. I reckon I got this during COVID because at that point I was like, we're stuck in the house. What would we do if the power went off? So I got a wind-up radio, but I also have a little battery-powered radio as well, and a bunch of batteries. So there's some AA's, we've got some AAA's, we've got some candles, we've got one of these little head torch things. This came in a 2-pack. The other one actually hangs on a hook by the door because I wear it if I, not at this time of year, but in the winter when I'm walking Dave out on the field. Yeah, I'll wear this on my head because I'm a cool guy. And then our camping stove is actually in the bottom here, just the gas bottles that are in the shed. But we have a little camping stove there, which, again, when Anna finally lets me get a van and we become van lifers, this is all stuff that's going to end up with double uses anyway. It's going to be handy to have a camping stove and some candles and some matches. So it's not like crazy person stuff. It's autistic man who sleeps better because he owns this kind of stuff. And ultimately that alone makes it worth having for me. And I reckon if we had to add up the cost of all of our stuff, like I say, it's been bought over a number of years, going back as long as 5 years ago, we started adding stuff to this kit. And I would say we've spent well under £500 total on all of it. I even got this off TikTok shop. I didn't buy this. I was sent this for a review. It was a free sample off of TikTok shop, No Grid Survival Projects. I admit that is the most mental thing that's in there. But I figured if they're going to send me a free copy of it, let's stick it in there just in case, because it's going to tell me how to do anything that I might need to do just in case. But yeah, it's very much a case of we didn't buy it all in one go. We haven't spent mega money on any of it. And it all just, it's peace of mind, useful stuff. And it will all get used anyway. It's not a case of we're just filling up the shed, filling up the garage with a bunch of stuff that we're going to end up throwing away. Everything in here will get used. The reason the pack of matches were open is because 2 packs of them have already come out. There's a pack in the kitchen and there's a pack in the car because, you know, sometimes you need matches to light birthday candles or, you know, it's just handy to have stuff. I think the torches came in a 4-pack and there's now one that lives in my backpack, one that lives in Anna's. And they're just little handy things for us to have on a day-to-day basis as well. And like I say, there isn't survival gear in here. We've not got sleeping bags. We've not got tents. We've not got all that kind of stuff because we're not going to need it. We're not planning on leaving the house. We've got our bed and duvets and blankets and towels and saucepans and stuff like that here. We're not looking to duplicate stuff we've already got. We're looking to just make sure that we've got enough stuff of the stuff that we might need. So I never again find myself in a situation I was in during COVID where I was driving from shop to shop trying to find a pack of yeast because you couldn't buy bread anywhere. I've got 2 packs of yeast in the kitchen. That's why there's none in here. But I have yeast, I have flour, I have a very well stocked store cupboard, again, of the stuff that we use. And I think that's the important thing. We're not buying anything that we wouldn't ordinarily buy. Instead, we're buying a little bit more of the stuff that we buy anyway, so that we've got a little bit of a stock of it, similar to what we've done with the medication. So if we are ever in that kind of situation again, and I admit it did freak me out and it obviously has affected me long term, but if we are ever in that situation again, we're all right. And I like the idea of being all right, and it allows me to focus on more important things like Lego and computer games and not have to worry about the survival of myself and my family. So that's a good thing. And I think at this point I have probably waffled on about this for long enough, so we're going to wrap things up here. If you have an emergency survival kit, would love to know what's in yours. Let me know down in the comments. Do you think there's anything obviously missing in ours or anything that we've got that we probably don't need? Thank you again to Jackery for sponsoring this video. I've wanted one of these for years. I feel like it's my gateway into van life. It's one less thing I need to buy when Anna finally lets me get a van, so that's a very positive thing. So very happy to have one of these finally. It is, as a techie nerd, it's a very cool thing to have. So thank you again to them, and thank you very much for watching.